Good morning, I'm Emmanuel Johnson reporting from New York. This is WNY News. Why multiple indictments are imminent for those witnesses who lied to the grand jury in Fulton County probe investigating Donald Trump's election fraud. Did Donald Trump aid at Mar-a-Lago copy classified documents and saved it on a laptop? Why was former Vice President Mike Pence subpoenaed by Jack Smith? Now for the details, please stay tuned. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis said her investigation includes looking into a January 2021 phone call in which Trump pushed Raffensperger to find the votes needed for him to win Georgia. Trump has said his call with Raffensperger was perfect and that he did nothing wrong. The Georgia State Grand Jury recently released its report regarding the investigation of Donald Trump's election crimes and recommended an indictment for those witnesses that lied under oath and others. WNY News correspondent Janice Collins has more.
The Special Purpose Grand Jury has recommended to an Atlanta area prosecutor, District Attorney Fani Willis, to seek an indictment as part of her investigation into former President Donald Trump's attempts to surreptitiously fake Georgia ballot results to steal the 2020 election. The released report was highly redacted and it doesn't say whether Trump himself should be indicted, but jurors do want Fani Willis to punish witnesses who lied about what happened. Majority of the grand jury believes that perjury may have been committed by one or more witnesses testifying before it. The grand jury recommends that the district attorney seek appropriate indictments for such crimes where the evidence is compelling, the report concluded. The most important indicator of the grand jury report states following is the final report of the Special Purpose Grand Jury. We set forth for the court our recommendations on indictments and relevant statutes, including the votes by grand jurors. This includes the votes respective to each topic, indicated in a yay/nay/abstain format throughout. However, a grand won't recommend indictments in a report if there were no crimes committed. This is a sure sign that multiple indictments are imminent. I'm Janice Collins for WNY News, Fulton County, Georgia.
Even though we don't know who all will be indicted, but we are getting closer to an indictment of Donald Trump and his cronies. Meanwhile, it sure seems like Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is going to do the right thing and be the first one out of the blocks, who will bring criminal indictments of ex-President Donald Trump and his allies for election crimes. The grand jury report also share one other thing. The grand heard extensive testimony on the subject of alleged election fraud from poll workers, investigators, technical experts, and state of Georgia employees and officials, as well as from persons still claiming that such fraud took place without producing an evidence. The jury said, quote, "We find by a unanimous vote that no widespread fraud took place in the Georgia 2020 presidential election that could result in overturning the election," end quote. The judge issued this statement after the report was released. Quote, "If this report fails to include any potential violations of referenced statutes that were shown in the investigation, we acknowledge discretion of the district attorney to seek indictments where she finds sufficient cause." You listening to WNY News. Our legal analyst Jason Edwards tell us about those that lied to the Special Purpose Grand Jury about Donald Trump's crimes and why they could be charged with a crime.
If you lied under oath to a grand jury, it would be considered a perjury, which is a federal crime. And by lying, that gives the grand jury leverage to indict you for potential perjury, obstruction, conspiracy, and accessory after the fact. However, the prosecutors could flip them. You could develop them as cooperating witnesses. You can have them enter into a plea agreement with cooperation that required the truthful testimony against the target of the investigation. How do you get them to flip? Well, the prosecutors can say to those who lied before walking into the grand jury, quote, "If you lie to this grand jury, I will ask them to consider indicting you for perjury," end quote. If you lie about a material matter, something of relevance to the investigation, and if we have the evidence to prove you lied, I will ask this grand jury to indict you for perjury, for obstruction justice, accessory after the fact, and obstructing the grand jury investigation. And if you lied about Donald Trump's crimes, you are helping him get away with those crimes, and therefore, you are an accessory after the fact to his crimes. And the prosecutor can also say, by the way, I'm going to investigate you for conspiracy too. Why? Because it may be that you are in a criminal agreement with others to tell lies just to help Donald Trump. The prosecutor will ask him these questions before going into the grand jury. Do you have any question for me? Do you understand? Now, let's go into the grand jury and tell the truth because I don't want to have to ask them to indict you. Jason Edwards, WNY News, Atlanta.
We know that many of Trump's allies were deeply involved in the conspiracy theory of the fake elector slate and overturning Georgia 2020 election results. For example, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina called the Secretary of State asking him to toss out votes so Trump can win. Who do you think lied to the special purpose grand jury? Rebecca Spencer, WNY News senior investigator, has more.
The Fulton County grand jury investigation asked approximately 75 people to testify, including some of Donald Trump's allies. They interview Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Jenna Ellis, and Sidney Powell, Trump's former lawyers. Former Trump's national security advisor Michael Flynn, Senator Lindsey Graham, former Speaker Newt Gingrich, and Mark Meadows. Critics believes Michael Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, Senator Lindsey Graham, John Eastman, Mark Meadows and others may have allegedly commit perjury because they all were part of the plot to overturn Georgia election. I'm Rebecca Spencer reporting from Fulton County, Georgia.
In another development regarding classified documents found at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, we now know that Donald Trump's aide copied classified document on a laptop. Paul Freeman reports.
Former President Trump's lawyer turned in a laptop belonging to a former aide. The lawyer reportedly told federal agents the computer contained a folder with classification markings. According to WNY sources, the aide did not realize the documents were classified. Lawyers for former President Donald Trump discovered more classified materials in January and gave them to federal investigators, multiple reports say. Among the materials turned in were papers with classified markings, an empty folder with classified markings, and the laptop of one of Trump's aides, multiple news outlets reported. The classified documents were discovered at Mar-a-Lago, but not in the area where Trump stored the batch of materials seized during the August search of his home by FBI agents. Trump's attorney, James Trusty, told federal investigators that classified materials had been electronically copied onto the laptop of the aide. The aide apparently did not know that they had scanned classified materials onto their laptop. ABC News was the first to break the news of additional documents being turned over to the FBI by Donald Trump's lawyer. Trump is being investigated by Jack Smith, the DOJ special counsel, after hundreds of documents were discovered in Trump's Mar-a-Lago home after he left office in 2021. Smith reportedly subpoenaed former Vice President Mike Pence, although sources told The New York Times it was for his investigation into Trump's role during the January 6, 2021 insurrection. I'm Paul Freeman reporting.
On Tuesday, it was reported that former Vice President Mike Pence will challenge Special Counsel Jack Smith's subpoena surrounding the events of January 6. Former President Donald Trump's quiet coup in the lead-up to January 6 failed when Pence refused to do Trump's bidding in rejecting or delaying the certification of President Joe Biden's election. But Mike Pence said he would defy the subpoena not to testify about Donald Trump's crimes after he had disclosed most of what took place behind closed door in the White House in his recent book called So Help Me God. Alice Cole has the rest of this story.
Mike Pence came out with a bogus line of defense stating that he is free from an obligation to testify comes under the Constitution's Speech and Debate Clause. It provides that senators and representatives shall not be questioned in any other place than Congress about any speech or debate in either house. Courts have regularly made clear, however, that the protection extends only to questioning about legislative acts. Mike Pence forgot that the mobs wanted to hang him and his former boss Donald Trump approved of that. Critics think Pence is a coward and he is afraid of hurting Trump's MAGA supporters, thinking that they will vote for him because he wants to run for president in 2024 but he can't win that legal argument in court. It's dead on arrival. Alice Cole for WNY News, New York.
We will close with this news: why Mike Pence will lose in courts and be forced to testify about what he knows about January 6 insurrection. Here is why. You remember last year, Senator Lindsey Graham failed when invoking the clause to try to avoid testifying before Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis' grand jury about a phone call he made shortly after the November election to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. While one never knows with this radical Supreme Court majority, the same result should apply here. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to this channel. Thanks for watching all of my loyal supporters and everyone. I'm Emmanuel Johnson for WNY News, in New York.